AI is going to be so integrated and so easy to use that I don't know if there's any benefit to early training at this point. I think the real benefit comes from teaching your kids how to follow through with tasks and how to relate to others and these skills that have been around for a long time, but have been, I think, minimized in the last 10, 15 years as well.
Welcome to the Healthy Screen Habits Podcast. I'm Hillary Wilkinson. Whether you're starting your parenting journey with a newborn or looking to connect with your teen on technology, let's learn some new healthy screen habits together. For weeks now, my neighborhood has been filling up with adorable ghosts and jack-o'-lanterns, and I love seeing all the Halloween decor. Some houses go for the fun, whimsical vibe with bright colors and cute black cats. That's totally my house. Well, the others go with all out in the fear factor, skeletons, coffins, creepy animatronics, etc. And as I was walking my dog, surrounded by all of this, I started thinking this kind of feels like the world of AI right now. So you got to stay with me. But on one end, there's the spooky warnings that we're hearing about, concerns about AI encouraging cheating, harming relationships, widening learning gaps. But then there's also, you hear equal part given to the helpful side, like physicians using AI to pull up medical research in real time, or today's guest who's using it to support parents and also teach kids media literacy. He's a tech entrepreneur and a father of two boys, ages 14 and 11. When he couldn't find the digital parenting tools he needed, he decided to build them. And in 2022, he co-founded BrightCanary, a service that helps parents guide their kids in today's digital world. Welcome to Healthy Screen Habits, Karl Stillner.
Thanks, Hillary. Great to be here.
Karl, was it your boys that truly motivated you to create BrightCanary, or what was your primary motivation?
Yeah, so I'm a longtime tech entrepreneur, and after we sold our last business, I was spending some time at T-Mobile, the acquirer, and my kids were just getting into the age where they were starting to use devices more and more. And I learned a really interesting statistic when I was at T-Mobile, and that is that 85% plus of American kids have an iOS device. And I'd been looking, because my kids have iOS devices, for solutions that really helped parents navigate this kind of onboarding into the digital world for kids. And I realized there weren't solutions that were built for iOS. They were largely built for Android. And
Mm-hmm.
so it seemed like a huge miss in the market, given the interest or the market share for parents with these devices. And so I, with my co-founder, who also has kids of roughly the same age, he has twins that are 15. We'd long lamented the fact that the tools that did exist, even if they're only for Android, were really focused on blocking and preventing kids from using certain apps or websites, which doesn't really seem that pragmatic anymore. I think it was very pragmatic 10, 15 years ago, but now with device ubiquity, where kids have devices at school, on the bus, etc., it doesn't seem like trying to prevent them is the best strategy. It is a strategy and it works up to a certain age, but it seems like what's more pragmatic is just keeping parents apprised of what their kids are doing so they can actually step in and be an active parent.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of like that you recognize the changing, there's so much analogy that gets done in digital wellness with driving, right?
Mhm.
And I think when we look back, the rules of the road have changed over the years. I happen to live in the Los Angeles area, and I can remember when the high occupancy vehicle or carpool lanes simply didn't exist.
Mhm.
And then as our roads started getting more crowded, they kind of incentivized people carpooling by adding this lane that would go zinging by you while everyone else was in gridlock. So it makes sense to me that someone with your background and your foresight was able to say, "Hey, this was really great." Just like the LA freeway system was really great for a certain time, but I think we can do better.
Mhm.
So, and that kind of goes into the philosophies surrounding AI that I was talking about earlier, how, from someone from your perspective, if you will, how are you viewing AI at this point?
It goes without saying that, we're at the beginning of one of the most dynamic and disruptive phases in human history. And it's not because we haven't had major changes before. I mean, we've had the internet, of course, we had the Industrial Revolution. What's different this time is the rate of change
Hmm.
and the potential for disruption in how humans spend the majority of their time engaged in work. And I don't really think we've come close to digesting what it means for so many different aspects of our lives, from schooling to relationships to how humans derive, fulfillment from life. This has made parenting even more difficult if it wasn't difficult enough.
Hmm.
Parents are off balance and, not sure what the implications are for their kids. What career paths are still viable? What do they need to learn in school? These are all very relevant questions now that weren't 20 years ago.
Yeah, gosh, not even 12 years ago.
Yeah, not
I
even
mean,
12 years ago, totally.
yeah, I have college-aged kids. I mean, we're having long talks about like what is the education of most worth?
Mhm.
What is knowledge seeking at this point?
Mhm.
Because we have information, we have infobesity, as it's called, you know, as far as the job market. It's hard to imagine how complete a change AI
Mhm.
can direct upon our current world.
Right. No, I think that's absolutely correct. And it's because we haven't experienced anything this dramatic this quickly before. And so we don't have anything to draw on. But I do think that, soft skills, being able to relate to others, empathy.
Isn't that so crazy? To me, it's so validating. As I mean, I've got it's a person who went psychology and then
Uh-huh.
early childhood development. I'm all about the touchy feely. I'm all about
Hmm.
it's so validating to me to learn that, oh, actually being human is really important.
It's going to be more important than ever.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to differentiate, of course, versus the machines. And so, having empathy, being able to communicate, and I think having grit and perseverance, because those are easy skills to lose now.
For
If
sure.
AI can do your homework for you, how do you actually develop the sense of perseverance and follow through? And so,
Yes.
I'm concerned about the fact that we're starting to deprive our kids of these most critical skills for the future with digital overuse. Kids are not outside interacting like they used to with others in the real world. And I think that's a better preparation for the future than actually putting them in front of a computer and trying to teach them how to use AI because AI is going to be so integrated and so easy to use that I don't know if there's any benefit to early training at this point. I think the real benefit comes from teaching your kids how to follow through with tasks and how to relate to others and these skills that have been around for a long time, but have been, I think, minimized in the last 10, 15 years as well.
It really speaks to the importance of play.
Absolutely.
I mean, just good neighborhood offline play.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. When we come back, we're going to talk about this service called Bright Canary that Carl co created. Need a fun school assembly that provides research backed content, actionable tips, and great presenters? Look no further. Healthy Screen Habits presents digital wellness material for all ages in developmentally appropriate, interesting ways that encourage kids of all ages to make good digital decisions, create lasting healthy screen habits, and learn safe methods of dealing with sketchy content. We have assemblies or in-class visits for all ages and stages. Give your school the best foot forward on digital wellness by reaching out to us at healthyscreenhabits.org. Click the Book a Speaker button and let's chat. I'm speaking with Karl Stillner, co-founder of BrightCanary, a parental control app designed to help parents monitor their child's online activity and ensure their safety. So, Carl, I have to admit, like, I was so excited to learn, and this is a huge reason why you're here today, that Bright Canary can monitor across multiple devices and social media platforms Especially with the Apple products that
Hmm.
you mentioned earlier, that have been prior to this have been notoriously tough to deal with.
Hmm.
Tough to deal with as far as in the monitoring space, because as you said, you gave us that number earlier, and I'm going to state it again. You had 85%. I need to clearly update my numbers because I have over 80% of US teens using iPhones or iOS systems, despite the known quirks and challenges that come with trying to use monitoring and filtering tools with Apple products. That said, I'd love to hear more about what exactly Bright Canary can do.
Yeah. So BrightCanary, as I mentioned earlier, is a tool that's really designed to help parents stay engaged with their kids' digital lives. And so the reality is kids are spending 6 hours plus a day on digital devices outside of school. And parents, this is a dark spot or black spot for parents. They don't understand what's going on in those 6 to 7 hours a day. And it's very hard to parent if you don't know what your kids are doing in the majority of time they're spending outside of school. And so our notion is not to block or prevent kids because we think that's a little bit of a cat and mouse game that the kids ultimately win, but instead keep the parents apprised of what the kids are doing so they can sit down and have engaged conversations with their kids and kind of teach them healthy habits, how to start thriving in a digital world, which they'll be dealing with for the rest of their lives, because they're at a critical point where they're open to that kind of feedback. And they can establish those habits early before, unlike a lot of adults, they've developed these bad habits and it's very hard to undo those, and so it's a critical point of course in their development. And so Bright Canary is a tool that sits on the parent's device, and it's an application that is used to monitor things like text messaging, so you can see every text your child has sent and received, including photos and videos, and includes deleted texts as well. We take all that content that we acquire from the text messages. We also take a content we acquire from what the kid's inputting into the device. So anything they're typing into Discord or Roblox or a social media platform, we get all the information they're putting into it. And then we also look at what kind of searches are being done on Google, what they're watching on YouTube, and we run that all through AI. And we provide feedback to the parent in terms of concerning content that we flag, of course, for the parent. We flag themes. These are the type of things your kid is doing online. These are the subject matters. Here are some things you might be able to talk to them about. And some of them are negative and some of them are positive. Did you know your kid's interested in astronomy? That's a great talking point for a parent of a 14-year-old who's starting to push away and isn't sharing all their personal interests. And so the idea is just to keep the parent apprised of what's going on so they can be an active and engaged parent.
Is it on searches only, or is it on content being viewed
So
as
it
well?
depends. There's some nuance. On YouTube, we can actually see what videos the kids are watching. So the actual videos, and the parents can watch the videos their kids will watch if they're interested in doing that. On other platforms like Instagram, you can
Mm-hmm.
only see what the kid is searching on, so what they're typing
Mm,
into the device. And so we don't get full visibility into some of the platforms, unfortunately. I wish we did, but
yeah.
um, we do not have partnerships with any of the social media platforms to date. They make it very difficult for us to gather the content. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of a cat and mouse game on our side with these companies, but we are able to show you everything that the kid has typed into these platforms, which in many cases provides a lot of visibility into what they're doing.
For sure. For sure. I really appreciate how you approach from sort of a teaching healthy habits,
Mhm.
mindset. And really, I think that can help focus the efforts on relationship building and talking about, leading into why certain areas may be problematic or
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good news is that in today's day and age, kids are much more aware of the costs associated with using these platforms in excessive manner than they were even 2, 3 years ago.
Uh,
So they've seen the
and
headlines
and parents.
and
I
parents.
mean,
And
I
so,
feel like it's been an overall awareness awakening.
yes, the research is there, the headlines are there now, the movies, the documentaries. And so kids are smart and they know that there's a cost and they're much more receptive and open to this than they ever were before. My son just came back from a camp yesterday, actually, and there was a bunch of high schoolers at the camp. And a couple of them pulled him aside and said, delay using social media as long as you can. I mean, this is what a sophomore is telling my son. That kind of awareness did not exist in the past. So they're much more
No.
open to it.
Yeah, and it gives me such hope because I get pushback from some people that are like, "Ugh, how can you still be doing what you're doing?"
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Oh no. It's so much better. It really truly is." I think the awareness building also brings with it a certain pain threshold for parents when they're like, "Oh, what's happening?"
Right. Right.
because they're recognizing the responsibility they now have I mean, it's not just responsibility, it's global. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. It does not solely exist on, like, I do not want to put the onus on parents by themselves. I mean, we have to do a lot of work in this area.
Yep.
But I do think that tools like you have created are making that job a little more accessible. And so, just to be like completely clear for any listeners who, like me, tend to be total analog
Sure.
thinkers, is would you qualify Bright Canary? It does not filter content. It's more of a watchdog. Am I right? So it's like
Correct.
it's a fence, not a watchdog.
That's right. So we're not trying to prevent the kid from searching on a certain term or using a certain application. We're just letting the parent know that the kid has searched on a particular term or watched a particular video or sent a message to someone that has some concerning content in it. And we're flagging that and we're telling the parent about it so that the parent actually is equipped to to step in and actually do their job as a parent and then just have those difficult conversations and teach the child.
Lots of families today live in different locations. Can Bright
Mhm.
Canary be shared with co-parents or with grandparents? Does it only go to one person or can it be across others?
No, we have the notion in the application where you can share it with a spouse or someone else who's involved in parenting the child as well.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
that is built into the application. Currently, it's only for two. There's potential to add more, but right now it's two people it can be shared with. And pointed out, very important to get both caregivers on the same page.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if our kids use Androids or other non-Apple computers, will it work with those?
Currently, they can. There are certain parts of our service that work on Android, but we will plan on launching an Android dedicated application in probably early 2026. And so that'll make a much broader suite of services available to those customers. And so it's something that's on a roadmap, but as a small company, we're trying to focus on, like I said, where the market is in the US and then expand it, of course, as well down the road.
Sure, sure. So I have to ask the big question about school devices.
Sure.
So are you guys able to monitor anything at school or
We're able to monitor Apple specific devices. So if your child has a Apple issued or a school issued iPad, then
mm,
we can monitor that.
hmm
We do not monitor Chromebooks or PCs currently at this
which
time.
is tricky because I
Yeah.
think, yeah, okay. So if teachers or others who work within the realm of, child wellness, if you will, if they are someone who are really interested in subscribing to Bright Canary, but they're at a point in their lives where they feel like they really can't take on one more subscription service, do you have any recommendations for that?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking that, Hillary. We're a mission-based company, and since day one, we have offered teachers, mental health professionals, and anyone who can afford a scholarship free subscriptions to our application. It's on the honor system. We ask people just write us an email and explain if they're a teacher, where they teach, or if they're if a mental health professional, where they practice. And then we give them a free subscription for a year to the service. And so we feel like that's very much part of our culture and the ethos of what we're trying to create here.
Wonderful. There are so many concerns surrounding AI.
Mhm.
As someone who is living in the tech development world, what do you think? This kind of goes into that teaching aspect and non-fear based teaching. We've always healthy screen habits. We always try to come from a place of hope and help.
Right, right.
Okay. But what are some of the most important messages you think we could give our kids surrounding the use of AI moving forward? when we're grappling with understanding what it even is. Like my like I've referred to myself as an analog brain. I mean, I have a hard time even like figuring out what's going on, but I
Hmm.
don't want to send fear-based negative messaging to my kids, but I do want it to be very realistic. So do you have any ideas?
Well, I mean, I think there's a few things that are important to teach the kids about when it comes to AI. I mean, first, understanding that these tools are imperfect and they're getting better all the time. They'll be imperfect for a long period of time in the future. And, they can produce inaccurate, misleading content, right? And
Hmm.
so I think that's a really important thing to teach kids so they don't think it's some kind of gospel, which is, I've even noticed with my kids, oh, well, AI said it's this, it must be true. And I think that's really dangerous to assume that everything it's spitting out is always accurate because it's not.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
that's a really important fundamental, I think, learning for kids. I also think that parents need to understand that kids and adolescents are super sensitive and vulnerable to attachments to tools that, mimic human
Hmm.
behavior, right? And so this notion
Hmm.
of having an AI bot that's your friend, while that may seem really appealing to a kid who is going through puberty, and there may be some value there, I think guarding against an unhealthy attachment where they're depending on it and it's replacing human to human interaction, I think is really important to keep an eye out for as well, because that's coming down the pike very soon. It's not just kids, of course, adults as well, but adults
Right.
should be a little better equipped to handle that and understand the context than a child who doesn't have a fully developed prefrontal cortex is, of course.
Yeah. That being said, I mean, we're hearing all the time about people who are developing relationships
Right?
with bots.
Right.
And yeah, so I agree with you. My my concern, and I'm sure I've said it before on here, but is we know that first the attention economy was hacked.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I feel like that was, a huge thing. And the low hanging fruit on that has been stripped at Healthy Screen Habits and other providers of people who are trying to provide help with parenting in our digital world, digital wellness. We used to kind of go across the spectrum of neurotransmitters and recognize, say, like the attention economy was based upon dopamine.
Right.
And we'd say to insulate your child against this dopamine drip, like really lean into the other ones, the connection, the oxytocin, the serotonin, those others, the endorphins, like really lean into that.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is that with AI, what is being breached
Hmm.
is now we're going after the other neurotransmitters.
Hmm.
So, and it's
Hmm.
no longer the attention
Right.
economy is stripped. Now we're going after the attachment economy.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting.
So,
Yeah. I think you're spot on. I think you're right. It's broadening in many ways.
yeah. But it's like you said, like you referenced earlier, with those things that make us most human are the
Hmm.
things that end up being very important.
Hmm.
And I can't ignore the seduction of the chatbot that tells you how smart you are all the time.
Right.
I mean, even in trying to meal plan, where I'm like, I have a bunch of leftover, what to do with leftover grilled chicken,
Right.
and it'll give me like four recipes. And then I say, okay, like, yeah, show me the curried chicken recipe. And it'll be like, great choice, you know?
Right.
And, for someone who's used to cooking meals that, may or may not get lukewarm response, I'm like, yes, that is a great choice. And it's healthy too.
Right. Well, and if you're constantly getting positive feedback from AI, it makes real world human interactions even more challenging because
Agree.
it's even more it stands even more stark contrast because there's pushback. There's all the various emotions that exist, and I think the risk is that people say, "Oh, I can't deal with that," and this resides solely in the AI world because it's even more uncomfortable than it used to be. And so
Right.
that's a concern.
Yeah, AI creates this frictionless environment.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, yeah, friction creates heat, but heat, as it turns out, that's where growth occurs as well.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we have to take a short break, but when we come back, I'm going to ask Karl for his healthy screen habit.
Diving into the world of smartphones can be a wild ride for kids and parents alike. Whether your child is getting their first smartphone or has had one for a while, chances are they're still figuring out the do's and don'ts of using a smartphone wisely. Our book is here to help. Healthy Screen Habits for Tweens and Teens, a training workbook to help you use your phone wisely, is the tool your child needs to navigate life in the digital world. From tackling poor phone etiquette to addressing social media anxieties and online safety concerns, we have your child covered. Written especially for adolescents, we've put together all the information, tips, hacks, and rules to ensure that your child's phone is a useful tool that they control, not the other way around. We explain the whys behind the rules of phone use. We show your child the possible traps and dangers to watch out for, how to prevent them, and how to fix them if your child has made a mistake. We give your child the 5 core healthy screen habits to use daily, protecting them from some of the worst mistakes tweens and teens make while using their phones. This workbook will teach your child how to use their phone as a tool to help them do great things in their one amazing life, and it will make your life so much easier at the same time. Packed with colorful graphics and easy to read content, this resource is a game changer for kids. Don't miss out. Buy your copy of Healthy Screen Habits for Tweens and Teens on Amazon.com today.
I'm speaking with Karl Stillner, co-founder of BrightCanary. And Karl, on every episode of the Healthy Screen Habits podcast, I ask for a healthy screen habit. This is going to be a tip or takeaway that listeners can put into practice in their own home. What's yours?
Well, one thing we have done for I don't know, 4 years or so now is we have set up our Wi-Fi router. So it's attached to a timer. You can get them on Amazon for a few bucks. And it basically turns off the Wi-Fi router every night at a prescribed time. I think it's currently at 9:30. And it turns it back on at, I think, 6 or 6:30 in the morning. And we use that as a way to kind of switch off all the devices in the house that are dependent on Wi-Fi, of course. And so even if one of our kids has figured out a way to get one of their iPads, they still aren't going to have internet access. And so it's really kind of fail-safe in many ways. Now, if your kid has cellular connection, it's not as fail-safe, of course. There are ways you can actually get around that. You can set up your device to turn off cellular at a certain time each day as well. And so you can do that through shortcuts. There's a whole Reddit forum about this. But short of that, turning off the Wi-Fi in a house really seems to be a preventative action for using devices when they probably shouldn't be using them and letting kids focus on sleep, which is, I think, a really important thing that we haven't discussed yet. And I'm sure you've talked about ad nauseum in many other podcasts because it's so relevant. And that is that, kids are their sleep is being replaced by digital use, and I think that is one of the things that cannot be overstated in terms of its impact on kids' developing brains.
I could not agree more. And I love the use of this kind of we talk about inner walls and outer walls of protection. And so that was kind of like an outer wall of protection that
Hmm.
just goes into place at a certain time, but recognizing that it's also important to talk to your kids about why we're doing this,
Right. That's right.
and that's where you get the biggest buy-in.
And that's
And
something that, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's something that I think is really important on all this to have dialogue with your kids about. And we advocate for that with Bright Canary is parents sit down and explain why they're using services like Bright Canary as a condition of using a device and have an open and transparent dialogue. And I think most parents would be surprised how receptive their kids are if it's explained to them.
I completely agree. It's the same, going back to the driving analogy.
Yeah.
We teach our kids the rules of the road and we explain why. Like, when you're going to make a left-hand turn, don't turn your wheel all the way to the left because if you get hit, it's going to drive you this way. I mean, it's just like that. So you guys are I would never want to call anybody the DMV. but you're far more interesting than the DMV.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And now for a compliment you've never received.
Yeah, that's right. That's a first.
Okay. As always, you can find a complete transcript of this show as well as a link to the Bright Canary website by visiting the show notes for this episode. And you do this by going to healthyscreenhabits.org. Click the podcast button to find this episode. Karl, thank you so much for being here, for being a super dad who saw a problem, solved a problem, and is letting others benefit from it.
Thanks, Hillary. I appreciate everything you guys are doing for raising awareness with parents as well.
For more information, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Healthy Screen Habits. Make sure to visit our website, healthyscreenhabits.org, where you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode. It's free, it's fun, and you get a healthy new screen habit each week. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate you giving us a quick rating. It really does help other people find us and spread the word of healthy screen habits. Or if you'd simply like to tell a friend, we'd love that too. I so appreciate you spending your time with me this week, and I look forward to learning more healthy habits together.